Welcome back, crew. It's October, and that means we have a brand new tabletop RPG of the month. We are focusing on the Walking Dead by Free League Games. And one of the fun things is we're at my favorite spot of learning any new system. We're going to go through and show you how to build a character utilizing the Walking Dead rules. And not just any character this time, we are building Rick Grimes utilizing the Walking Dead RPG rule set, so you can see us bring the sheriff to life. You can see all the different attributes that go through it. And our hope is after you watch the video, you'll be able to, if you're a game master, talk your players through the process. Or if you're a player, you can show ready to rock up with your own character and try your hand at the zombie meat grinder. But let's dive right in. With this system, one of the things I'll say too is it's not too hard to build a character. It's on the mechanic side, fairly light on that side, not too complex. It's one of the ones that if you're not talking through it like we're about to, you could probably build one in about 10 minutes. But it also has some cool narrative ties and just some fun mechanics with a dice pool system too. Yeah, let's dive right in. So, first big thing is you want to go to page 26, which is going to show you kind of everything you need to know on the step list of building out your character. So, with this, the first thing that you have to do is pick your archetype. So the archetypes are like little, I wouldn't call them classes, or they're kind of like little like light classes, we'll say. They're groupings that include your key attributes, your key skills, as well as different starting talents, issues, just different packages that really aid you in quickly figuring out who your PC is and what's going on with them. So we're building Rick Grimes. He's a sheriff before everything fell apart. Luckily, there's a law enforcer archetype, so we're going to go with that one for him. We're going to flip over to that page a little bit later where you can see everything that comes along with it. But I want to point out a couple of the cool things before we get that far. The nice thing too is you'll see with the if you don't have an archetype that fits the concept you're going for, there are rules for going through and building your own archetype or building without an archetype, I should say. You'll need to work with your game master just to make sure everything kind of balances out. But luckily, you can kind of go through and pick exactly what would fit your concept as well. But now that we've got our archetype picked, we're going to be our law enforcement that fits Rick well. The next big thing is going to issues. And so, as I said, there's a lot of cool narrative pieces that are involved with this, which kind of makes sense for kind of like the drama, the most soap opera drama of the Walking Dead universe. Each of your characters is going to have some issue that drives them, or some issue that can just be used as the game master for a roadmap on how to challenge the player. So with ours, the couple of the examples they give, you could be an alcoholic, you could be somebody that will protect kids at all cost, you could be somebody that's just lonely, looking for company. For Rick Grimes, I think his biggest issue, and you can see this throughout the series, no spoilers, is that he's willing to do anything to protect his family. So I think that's one of his issues, one of the ones you can kind of drive and start ramping up different scenarios as the game master, is seeing how far he'll go to continue to protect his family. So that's our core issue on that side. This is more of a narrative piece. It's kind of giving your game master different tools they can do to challenge and spice up the game. Now that we've got that, one of the other big pieces is your drive. So this is kind of the things that keeps you pushing forward through the world of the dead and trying to keep waking back up and fighting through it all. With this, there's a mechanical piece that comes with the drive, and basically what it allows you to do is once per session, when you are kind of doing something that fits what your drive is, you can invoke it and explain kind of how this scenario motivates you, how it links to your drive, and it's going to allow you to get a +2 modifier on your skill roll, and lets you get 2 extra base die for the roll as well. So kind of some cool things you can do with that. For Rick, I would say his biggest driving drive throughout the series, but especially the early parts, was finding a safe place for his family, kind of a little bit of a safe haven for them that's really safe from the walkers as well as the other living around. So that's what we're going to say his drive is there, finding a safe home for his people. Also, with that, luckily Rick doesn't have any scars. If you did want to have some type of scar, you can either roll through here and determine kind of what you've got, anything from dead eyes to bullet holes to traumatized. So now that we've got that, we're going to go into some of the meat of the RP, or the mechanics side, I should say. So we've got our characteristics. With the system, you've got attributes. And there's four key attributes. You've got strength, agility, wits, and empathy. Brain's pretty clear. Physical activities, kind of how much can you lift, how good at close combat fighting are you, all of that. Agility, kind of how coordinated you are, how kind of good motor skills. It's also used for your long distance fighting. So if anything, you've got a pistol or anything like that. Wits is kind of how quick you are, kind of how well you're able to strategize and think on your feet. And empathy is kind of how well you're able to connect with the world and convince people and lead people. So with this, you get 13 points that you get to spend. With that, you've got a minimum value that you have of 2 and a maximum value of 4 that your attributes can go to. With that, remember when we mentioned that your archetype gives you a key attribute for the law enforcer, that's wit. That key attribute could go up to 5 if you'd like to. Basically, you get to spend these 13 points between these attributes, with Q being the baseline. So you have to spend what is it, at least 8 of your points, just getting everybody up to the baseline, and then you got the 5 left to play around with. So for building out Rick, I thought he's got like his average strength. I thought maybe a little bit stronger, but didn't want to go too crazy there because we need our points otherwise. For agility, I gave him a 4. Not just because he was super nimble, but he was a very good shot. I wanted to have that reflected in there because he's always with that little revolver, headshot and walkers like it's easy. So I wanted to make sure we could do that for the build. Wits, he's a very smart guy. He's able to kind of strategize and think through things fairly quickly. So I gave him a 4. That's also his key stat due to being the law enforcement. And then finally, I gave him a 3 in empathy, mostly due to they've got a leadership skill that's on that side. He's usually pretty charming as well when he wants to be. So I thought that fits. It's not his best stat, but definitely one that he can kind of invoke when he needs to. And that's easy. That's pretty much how what you need to do to ascribe your attributes. There's no rolling, no extra kind of bonuses you have to worry about. Pretty straightforward on that end. Now, the next big thing is you're going to go through and pick your skills. There's 12 different skills tied to the different attributes that you could choose from. You also have 12 points that you could spend between these different skills. The skills range from 0 to 5, with 0 being the low end. You've got no training in it, and 5 being the max. Now, if you're starting off with the system, you can only have you can have more than 2 in any skill except your key attribute or your key skill. Your key skill can start at a 3. So with that, scouting for law enforcement is their key skill. And that's kind of where you can get your 3 in. Outside of that, there's a lot of other cool skills that you can pick from. I'm going to go show off that page as well, just so you can kind of see all the cool stuff you can get. One big thing I would call out, just as you're building your PCs, is that combat skills are also included in here. So ranged combat as well as close combat, these are where you're going to roll when you're in a fight, whether it be walkers or against the living. So you want to make sure, depending on what type of PC you're going to build, you've got some points in those. And with The Walking Dead, sometimes it's not good to shoot, so I'd recommend a spread. So for building Rick, I gave him a 2 in ranged combat, a 2 in close combat. We took just a straight 2 in scouting, which allows us to kind of like go through and scout out the different kind of what's going on in the situation. I also gave him a 2 in leadership, and then a 1 in force and a 1 in stealth. And I think that was all 12 as well. I thought that fits Rick. He's a good shot. I also wanted to make sure the range combat was good spot there. He is able to fight pretty well, close combat wise. So we've got that going for him. And he is able to kind of look through scenarios and scout out. And the other big one that I really wanted Rick to have, because he does a good job of this when he's a little bit sane, is the leadership. So I wanted to go through and make sure he had that reflected in his gear as well. So after that, we've got our skills, we've got our attributes. Let's go back to our list and see what we don't have. So right now, we are on spot 7. We're going to go through and pick a talent. Before we do that, I'm going to show off the archetype page because your archetype will also determine what talents you can pick from. So let's go check out the law enforcer and see what options you can have. So with that, you see it gives you the key attribute, your key skills, it gives you some talents, which we'll hit in a second. But in case you didn't have an issue or a drive that you wanted to do natively, it can give you this as well. And then finally, we'll get into this a second as well. It gives you your gear as well as your relationship to others. So let's dive into it. The last big thing we're gonna do is we're gonna pick out our talent. We've got three options: steady hands, watchful, or moral compass. I think from based off kind of Rick where he'd fit on this side, I think the steady hands would be the best. And you'll see the nice thing with this too is it breaks it out by your type. So it shows you exactly the three they've got there, so you don't have to kind of go through and do alphabetical order, whatever it may be. Just find your archetype and kind of read through it. So Monthly Study Fans fits Rick the best. It basically allows us once per session, we may choose to not roll any stress die on one single roll. Basically, you're able to keep it together under the pressure. We're going to do a whole mechanics video on what the stress die means, because sometimes they can be beneficial, but sometimes you just don't want to fail that. And it may be a better idea just to get those stress dice off the table. So with that, we've got our talent. So let's go back and check, see what other pieces we need to do. So we need to go through and choose our gear, which we'll go through in a second. And then the last big thing is you define your relationship to your other PCs and choose your two anchors. So we're going to hit those two pieces before we dive into the gear section, because I think that's kind of a cool thing they do with this system. Because with this system, you're able to go through and pick anchors within the team, and the anchors are how you're able to reduce stress by having a conversation with them or kind of taking a moment with them to interact and bringing your stress down. Now, if you're in a party, you're going to have two anchors, one of them being one of your fellow PCs, and one of them being NPC, the game master with control. You would be able to go through and build out your relationships with them, utilizing some of the pieces from your archetype as well, because they give you also some cool things, which we'll touch out in a bit with the law enforcement, just to kind of help give you ideas on how to start it off. And now for the mechanic pieces of what stress does and kind of the relieving it, we're going to do that in our mechanics video. We just wanted to make sure you know that you get to pick those two anchors. So for ours, if we were building it out, we would probably pick, let's say Lori and Carl. Let's say Lori is in our party. She's a fellow PC. Carl, an NPC, the game master, would get control and bring in every now and then. So now that we've got that, the last big thing we're going to do is go over our gear. So with gear in the system, you get to roll a d6 three times on your archetype gear page. And it's going to tell you what you get. So for this, for Rick, we're going to cheat. We're going to take the revolver, and then the other ones may fall where they may, because that's definitely kind of something that's innate to him, is just having that six shooter. And then basically with this too, you get to pick a relationship to other characters. You can utilize your archetype as well for this. You can kind of go through and pick one of the PCs and say you want to protect them, or you trust them, or you think they are a puzzle that you may want to solve or you may not want to deal with. So it gives you some cool options there for kind of flaring that out and deciding how you can interact with the party. But after that, that's kind of our last big one. We'll go back to our list and you'll see the only other thing that would be left is if we were building out our starting haven. With this one, for Rick, we'll just say right now he's still on the hunt for one. But they also give some haven rules and kind of what that means for your PCs too and where they're starting off from on their account. But now we've got Rick Grimes built utilizing the system. And I said this is a fairly easy one to build a character in. This is one that you could definitely, if your character dies mid-session, build one fairly quickly. We probably just have to ask a few questions to the PCs just so you can get those relationships interacting with them, and then join right back in the adventure. Yeah. Thanks everybody for hanging out with us. Shout out some of your favorite Walking Dead pieces of their character builder or characters you think would be fun to build in this system. And then we're going to be doing our live actual play. Right now it's scheduled for November 7th. That could change. Hopefully it stays there, but I'll throw a link down in the description. Make sure you come through and get a chance to win a free PDF copy of The Walking Dead by Free League Games and get to tell your own zombie tales with your crew. But thanks everybody for hanging out. Like, subscribe, and definitely make sure to check out the actual play. And we'll see you all next time.